Hello and welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I'm your co-host Nathan Rittenhouse.
And I'm your co host, Cameron McAllister. In this episode, we consider whether it is right or wrong to insult your robot. And actually, it ends up being a very interesting episode. This is one where Nathan and I have somewhat of a disagreement on the distinction between humans and animals. And then we talk about the distinction between humans and AI. What we're very interested in is how we have a tendency to humanize things and creatures that are not themselves human, and how this leads to all kinds of very interesting confusion. We think this will be a helpful episode for you, especially as we just think about what it means to be a person in 2025, a time that feels increasingly like we are living in the future. Like, share, and subscribe as always. And if you find value in what we do and you want to get behind us and support us, make sure this keeps happening, you can do that by going to www.toltogether.com. We really appreciate your support. Thanks.
Today, Cameron, I want to talk about the C word and why you shouldn't use it. This is the new C word, which is clanker, in reference to robots and AI and other digital things that are prone to begin annoying humans. I think clanker was used in a Star Wars reference back to some kind of military droids that clanked when they walk. So you can think about like the metal robotic walking, but has now come to be the preferred derogatory slur toward the little robots running around on the streets delivering pizza or anytime the AI messes something up. And so you can use this derogatory slur toward your whatever you want to call your relationship to the technology in your life, which um, is funny because people are pointing out that the whole thing around this is like clearly it's not human or human-ish, and so when you use a slur towards something, you're almost in some way humanizing it, which is different than in the past in which we've like dehumanized something by maybe you can think of like Nazis referring to Jews as animals. We dehumanize with the slur. This is a weird situation in which we're starting to humanize things with our slurs. And so, want to throw that out there. I think the slur says more about us than it does about the thing we're interacting with. Although I don't know how many times a day I need to do some kind of dual authentication mode just to log into something seemingly normal or download something to get something to work. So, I mean, you know, working with technology is one of the key ways in which people start believing in demonic possession, I think. But aside from the actual frustration
Yeah.
of working and living in a digital age, um, I thought this would be a fun way to kind of toe into the water again, Cameron, on the continued conversation that will need to be having in a rapidly developing tech world and the interface between humans and technology and the language that we as humans use while we're talking about technology.
Yeah, I think about this so often through the lens of my kids because they're growing up in this world, this strange new world. But they're also surrounded by humanized machinery everywhere, from Alexa units. I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm such a grumpy old man stickler about, well, Alexa this, and then sorry, Dad, that's right. It's not a woman. But also, one of my favorite Pixar films, I mean, the greatest Pixar film of all is Ratatouille, no questions asked. And I will tolerate no dissent. But the
Can't
other one that's
don't
really,
you have
really
a button-down Ratatouille dress
yeah,
shirt?
I
So
do. Yes, I
there's the
do.
tidbit for the day.
And not ashamed of it at all. But the other one though is Wally. And what's amazing about Wally is just part of the visual genius of Wally is you have these two robots in the movie who are in some ways extremely physically simple and barren, and yet the amount of emotion that is conveyed through both of them is astonishing. I mean, within the first 5 minutes of this movie, you already love this little garbage robot, and you see they've communicated purely visually this deep sense of sensitivity, that this robot is a hopeless romantic, all through just eye gestures. But it's also kind of scary to me because I'm trained in philosophy, and we can we can take the fun out of absolutely anything. That's one of the skills of a philosopher, right? So I'm thinking, gosh, if human if machinery, if something this mechanistic looking is this humanizable, you know, the confusion that this can lead to, and of course now, oh my goodness, is that ever the tip of the absolute iceberg with now when you're scrolling on Instagram, for instance, there's a whole list of different AI units that I can chat with, and it will tell you below how many, millions of people are chatting with this one right now, and or, you think of deep fake, footage and videos that misleads a ton of people all the time now because it's increasingly sophisticated. But yeah, just the tendency to humanize machinery and inhuman objects. I mean, in some ways, it's
Wait a
kind of
second.
yeah. Let me pause
So
there.
I think there have been steps in between this. All right.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
So far, like, yeah, this makes sense. All right. What about this one? What if animals were the gateway drug to this?
Oh
Because
boy,
we've been
you would do this,
humanizing
wouldn't you?
animals for a
Oh, we
long
have.
time, way before we got to robots.
Yeah.
But the fact of the
I have.
matter is that your AI chatbot is closer to being sentient. Wait, do I want to say this? Oh, this
Well,
is
I might
oh man,
disagree.
I haven't thought
I'm
about
gonna
this.
disagree
I
with
might
you on this
I'm
one.
going to
I think.
disagree with
Yeah.
myself. I'm going to disagree with myself before I say it. But
Okay.
your AI chatbot is far closer to communicating with you in a human sense than your dog is, as far as human language goes. Now, as far as the sentience of whether or not your pet turtle is more sentient than Microsoft Copilot,
Uh-huh.
I'm just
Okay.
I'm being provocative
Okay.
intentionally and throwing this
I
out there
like
for
it.
everybody who's listening to have fun. All right, go with it.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good. I think it's a good provocation. So I'm sympathetic to what you're saying. I'm not sure I agree with it. So I think and I maybe if I'm understanding you correctly, you can set me straight. There's a difference in kind, not degree, I think, between, say, a pet dog and an Alexa unit. I'm gonna make an absolute distinction between those two.
But here's where it gets tricky for me though, because I would make a distinction in kind between the dog, the AI unit, and myself. So
I'm
there
not
are
sure I would
3
go that,
there
but
well,
there's gonna be a
the
spectrum
whole
here. So
the
yeah.
whole degree and kind thing is the foundation of the animal rights, vegetarian, evolutionary constructs and the theological overlap of is an animal
Well,
actually if an animal is only different in degree rather than in kind, then it
okay.
does change some. So
No,
I want to preserve
it
my
could. Yep.
I want to I want to
But I don't.
preserve my kind and degree on my end. You can do what you want.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, one caveat. I will say this. Nathan knows more about animals than I do and ever will, and works more closely and intimately with animals than I ever will. So I am a dog owner. That's all I can say. But my thinking here is that with with animals, for instance, and I kind of follow David Bentley Hart on this one a little bit, and this is admittedly going to sound a little bit strange and speculative. All I can say is that there's a body of literature on this, but I do think that there is strong evidence for a kind of soulfulness, consciousness in certain animals and maybe in others that we're not even aware of. Now, I would agree completely with you, Nathan, in that I will make an absolute distinction, value distinction between human beings and other animals. But that value distinction is predicated on the imago Dei. And I think
So
this is an
I
immensely important doctrine and we have a lot of work before us on this one because I think it's if you press into it, it's not I don't think the image of God is very well understood by people who your average churchgoer, and
I
that might be a separate
no.
conversation,
So
but anyway,
so
I'll
here
stop there.
let's use this distinction. So I think there is a difference in kind between humans and animals and AI and humans, but the difference of kind is a different kind of kind. So the reason for this is that
Okay.
so humans are made in the image of God. Animals are made by God, but not made by humans. AI is made in the image of humans, but not in the image of God and not made by God.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they're three kind of different. So there's a way in which I would more closely experience life as a pig does than an AI ever will as me.
Right.
There's a biological electrons in brains functioning, tactile nervous senses, synapses firing sense in which I'm way more like a goldfish than I am
Well,
ChatGPT 4.
I have a question for you though, Nathan. And it seems to me I've asked you this before, but I'm old, so I'm going to ask it again at the risk of repeating myself here. But what would you say to? I mean, a dog, for instance. There's or even cats. Cats get a little bit more dicey sometimes, but a dog shows genuine love and affection. Or okay, let's not use the word love because I suspect that you'll balk a little bit at that word. A dog can show genuine affection to its owners and to others. What's going on there though? I just a little
So
I mean, you can't
uh,
I'm not asking you
y-
to explain exhaustively, yeah, but
no,
what's happening? Yeah, just a
here's
little
what's
bit.
happening. So I think I so let's concede that there is some percentage of loyalty between humans and animals, or and a phenomenal range of stories of. So yeah, let me put that there. What I do think is similar here, though, is that um, in both the animal and the cute little Wally robot, there's a phenomenal amount
Mhm.
of humans' capacity to read meaning into things, and then for us to selectively breed or create algorithms that play on and reflect our own emotions back to us. So if you look at I mean, and some of this is weird. Like if you are a young woman who doesn't have a kid, your chances of having a big eyed dog are higher because they have like baby eyes. Like, I mean, there's a phenomenal range of psychological and sociological research out
Mm.
there of like we've bred animals as proxies for other human
Yeah.
interactions to fit. So it's not like a lot of the animals that we interact with are not the natural animal. They are very human crafted, sculpted, bred, valuable for the way in which they reflect our emotions back to us. And so on one hand, I'm not saying that, your dog doesn't love you and isn't loyal to you. On the other hand, you also feed it. And it's
Okay, good.
a
Let's get that
thousand
straight right
iterations
away.
of breeding
Magnolia
for it to
loves me.
manifest
Just kidding.
certain. Yeah. Magnolia, she's
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
the jury's out on whether or not she even likes me, but we'll see. So the so
The
in
jury
both
is not out on whether Nathan likes her.
the the so in both of these cases there is a sense in which, I mean, so you're talking about Pixar even has, isn't Pixar where like when like it says Pixar on the screen, like the little lamp comes out jumping and then like
Blank. Yep. Yep.
squashes the eye down and
You
then
got it.
looks over at you sideways like all curious and cute. that
All right.
that is
So
constructed
here
in
I
order to elicit that emotion from us by a human
yeah.
who developed a algorithm or a movie or a dog to get that response from us.
Okay. Here I think I am in disagreement with you. But I'm sympathetic. Again, up to a point. So, yes, do
I'm holding my
humans
cards very
anthropomorph
loosely here, just for the sake of getting the having the conversation be fun.
Oh, sure. Do humans anthropomorphize their pets? Oh, absolutely. Every time you see a dog in a sweater, just go to an upscale doggy park or a doggy spa. Yes, it's ridiculous. However, that's true. Do human beings have a tendency to to read all sorts of stuff into their dogs? Absolutely. So I do this all the time with our dog. I talk for our dog. I mean, a lot of people do this, and my kids constantly respond as though this is Magnolia actually engaging them in these dialogues.
Okay, wait, but
But
you just said
all
you
that
don't let
being
your
said,
kids use
look,
pronouns for a computer program that can have.
correct. But
Okay,
I don't follow you. I think there's a complete difference between an
okay,
Alexa
no, no,
unit and my
this is right.
actual
Okay,
dog.
but
'Cause
this
my
is the
dog's a
question.
real living creature. Yeah.
Okay, so
But
is that
okay,
the
so
main difference,
here's what
or
I'm
you want to spell this out a little more?
well, here's yeah, well, here's what I'm trying to here's what I want to say. Even though people humanize their pets and all of that, that doesn't change. You didn't answer my question. You said you just proceeded to give a bunch of anthropological details about how people use pets as surrogates for people and all of that. That all might be true. It doesn't change the fact that certain animals that were, certain pets, for instance, communicate what appears to be genuine, not just loyalty, but real affection. They seem to know things they're not supposed to know. They know, for instance, when, my dog will pick up, and a lot of people point this out, that, that when your owner's coming home before they've even set foot in the door, my dog knows when my wife is coming home, when her van is driving, you know, down a certain, it'll be well down the street. And this is not, I'm not trying to say there's some mystical, but there's something going on. I think there's a level of, it's not self-awareness on human terms at all, but I don't wanna be so reductive with what's going on with animals. I think there are genuine communicative possibilities. They're not communicating on human terms. They're not speaking to you in the same way. They don't mean that, but we do have actually the ability to learn a lot about, for instance, certain animals that are around us a lot, the way dogs communicate, what certain modes of when they're yawning a lot, for instance, it doesn't necessarily always mean they're tired, it might mean they're nervous. There are certain things that they'll do that are, we can understand as, dogs as pack animals, how they look for the alpha, all that kind of thing. But there's real genuine affection happening there. And I think, and they're made by our Lord. I mean, and this is, I haven't even gotten into the more complex of, we haven't even mentioned primates, right? Where you do see such I think there is astonishing levels of some kind of awareness there that is, and now, but again, I'm also gonna say that it's very important that I think the absolute value distinction of human beings is a theological one. Now, it's also, let's just point out the patently obvious. There is no chimp, there is no primate painting the Mona Lisa or giving us the Sistine Chapel or anything even remotely on those terms. So there is there
But
is
many
a
chatbots
world
can.
of difference, orders of, yes, they can. Yes, they can. But yeah, but there's a just with regard to other, animals, we're orders of magnitude different.
So, so,
So,
so,
yeah.
all right. To bring this back in, and we'll probably have to work on sorting out the details of this a lot because Cameron, the question of
I
animal.
want you to pat my dog. That's what
Yeah,
this
yeah,
comes down to.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
All right,
You've never
Magnolia.
pet her. You need
All
to
right,
pat her on the
Magnolia.
head.
Yeah, I don't mind you licking me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
um the so and we won't go down this rabbit trail, but let me just set this up because this will be a
You
conversation
sure, sure.
on robot rights and algorithm rights.
Mm,
If it appears sentient and it appears to have a conscience and it can communicate real wants and desires and human emotions back to us, is that the foundation for whether or for how we treat these things? And that's part of the conversation that'll be happening here in the future. Now, all of that comes back to whether or not you should use a derogatory slur toward a robot or toward a algorithm. And here's where I think things get interesting is that I think humans have a higher moral responsibility toward animals and ethical considerations and like God cares how you treat your animal. Um I did butcher 120 chickens this week or 130, whatever it was. I mean, so I eat meat and I see this in a
sure.
broader framework but I'm saying I think
Stewardship.
God cares about how we treat animals in a way that I don't see or know what the
Yeah.
moral foundation for how we treat machines are, other than the reflection of our own character that is expressed in the words that come out of our mouths. So I I think you can offend God. Okay, got to work through this. This is genuine thinking out loud here.
Mm,
You can dishonor God by the treatment of animals. You can.
mhm.
I don't see as it seems like a entire different ethical question because I'm seeing such a difference in kind on whether or not. So it doesn't do you any good to curse a mule when it's being hard headed. Like that's just a reflection of your own frustration. It doesn't do you any good to
Yeah.
curse your computer when it's not cooperating. Both of those are categorically, I think, out of bounds and unnecessary and don't even make sense other than like if you get some kind of high off of your self-expression of your frustration, which I think probably is a form of a lack of self-control. But
Just
it doesn't have
you're
a
just losing self-control, yeah.
you're losing
Yeah,
self-control is what's going on there. So,
yeah.
whether or not you should refer to a thing trying to deliver Uber Eats to somebody on your college campus as a clanker or not, maybe it's funny, but
Okay,
so so
I think I have an answer for you here,
help me.
I think. Well, I don't know if I can help you, but I think it's very on I can take this in a very on brand for Nathan Rittenhouse direction. And so when we're talking about our how do we say this? Our our treatment of
It
machines, our conduct with machines. Yes, if we go in a virtue ethics direction, we're going to focus on how our behavior and comportment affects us inwardly. So if you start treating okay, I think this is how I've heard it brought up a lot, Nathan. So if I start treating whatever equivalent of AI I'm using, whether it's Chat GPT or Mort or whatever it is you're using, if I view it in my own head and treat it, like a slave. This is my slave and it'll do, and I incorporate even into I let's say I design it like a slave. You can do that, right? You can
Mhm.
you can of course customize your AI unit. So let's say I make it into a
Give it a number
glorified
rather than a
slave
name.
and I give it a number rather than name. I make it more and more subservient in the way it talks to me. Everything I do all of that. Okay. Are you actually hurting a sentient being right now? In the classical sense of does it have consciousness? No, it doesn't. Does it have, you could say it has some sort of form of artificial and modified intelligence in that sense. But let's say you let's bracket that for a second. Let's say you take yourself off the hook ethically for that. It's not a real living being, therefore you're not culpable for you can say whatever the heck you want to it. But what is that going to do to you if you start doing that? What do you think that maybe there's a chance that if you start treating your tools that bring you a lot of information, that do a lot of tasks for you, if you start treating that like a slave or start treating, with as something beneath you, do you think maybe, just maybe, that's going to spill over into some of your human
Well, but
interactions?
so
I
this is the
think it conceivably
well,
might.
no, and it will, and this is the issue with conceiving of the machine as a human, if you don't have the differentiation of kind. So this is what people are talking about, like,
Mhm.
with, like, violent AI porn or can you rape a robot or something like that. The concern is not the ethical treatment of the thing, it's like, well, how does this then reshape the way that you think about actual humans? And so that
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean,
mean,
it's the
that's a
same.
very secular concern about
Yeah.
it, that's a step removed from the virtue side of it, but that I think that's why it's important to have this conversation. I mean, can you is there something in between, like, can we talk about, like, do you kick a pee on a shrub? Like, I like,
No,
it
there
the
is there
there's a big difference
there
there.
is something in between, and it's very heinous and it's very real and it involves human beings and it is pornography. And I know this AI thing takes us in a whole different strange direction there, but the concern that you just voiced with how let's how somebody would treat a sex robot, right? Well, the concern I mean it's the same as what is porn, what is one of the I mean there are so many outworkings of porn that are socially disastrous. But one of them, the most basic, is objectification. And this is why violent pornographic content is closely monitored by authorities. And it has a special categorization with the FBI because it's been correlated with violent behavior. Surprising, shocking to no one. So that we have experience with objectification. This is a perennial, horrible habit of human beings down the ages. And pornography, of course, is nothing new. You can find it's hilarious to use the phrase ancient porn, but there is ancient pornography, and there,
Pompeii street art, if
but
you're looking for a starting spot.
correct, yeah, and it depicts scenes of a lot of which are of scenes of sexual violence. So so that concern is very real. But again, I think there's somewhat of an analog there because you have a you have a whole I don't this whole vile tradition that is devoted to the objectification and commodification of human bodies and human beings. and it has had very bad results, disastrous results. So this would, if you have something that is even more lifelike, but appears to, you think about also the other comparison I can think of, Nathan, is when you had the introduction of advanced kind of reproductive technology like the pill, which appeared to divorce the sex act from its natural consequences. And that resulted in a complete social revolution. So you have now the possibility of a sex robot that dehumanizes an act that is inherently human and one of the most intimate expressions of physical affection on there. I mean, how can that it's hard to imagine. I feel like Michael Crichton right now. I mean, how could we possibly know the least idea of what to expect with
Jurassic
all of
Park's
this? And I'm
about plentiful.
laughing, but that's right. Yeah.
So, Cameron, here's the framework, I think, as Christians talking about this. Here's what Jesus said, is that out of the overflow of the heart the mouth speaks. And so
Yeah.
that does become the litmus test for the words that come out of our mouth, our litmus test for where our heart's actually at, and we're fooling ourselves if we think it's otherwise. We have this from our Lord. So the language that we use, whether we're talking to a dog, a tree, a cat, a chatbot, whatever, all of those are mirrors for. And so whether or not we're projecting ourselves onto an animal and looking for an anthropocentric or an anthropological reflection back on us, or we're talking to a chatbot and we're looking for that reflection back onto us, a lot of these things do function as mirrors and are constructed and built and designed to function as mirrors, for what's actually going on inside us. The difference is in that our communication with animals is that God has a vested interest in the well-being of that sentient creature with a nervous system, and created humans
Mm-hmm.
to name them and to care
Yeah.
for and to. So that's it's a higher level there, but still the chatbot still, I think, works as a proxy for a mirror of the posture of our. Like, you don't yell at something unless you're in a hurry or you're bitter about something else, or there's an overflow of the. um we've had two technological issues just in trying to record this podcast, which I think, some AI bot is
Yeah.
listening to my abusive language about it. And, you know, um, so Google's trying to shut
Take
us down.
that.
Take this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a word of caution. It's a fun conversation that we're having here, and I don't think we've tied a neat, tidy bow on anything. But this is us literally thinking out loud and just
I
kind
don't
of
know that we can right
throw
now.
some bread on the water of,
It's
like,
too it's
it's too soon to
yeah.
know exactly what this.
It's too
And
soon.
I
Yeah.
mean, but you also look at, you have this whole line of the technological development things, like we could progress way faster in our robotic capacities if we didn't have an insatiable desire to make them look like humans. Like, why are we trying to build a robot that can walk and look like a nanny to your grandma, and it needs to look like a human to not
Mhm.
be creepy? Like, if you could just put the thing on wheels instead of legs, no, man, it could do way more
Yeah.
stuff. And
Sure.
so there is this sense in which we are trying to create something in our own image that will, um never be in our image, because we're made in the image of God, and that thing can't be. But there will start being these weirder ethical considerations, because we're trying to impose humanity on it, but then use our language and treat it as if it isn't human. And it's going to be a recipe for some wild reflection on what it means to be human and what we say and do and will and won't want to participate in.
I think we will be talking about this for a while because I think crazy new developments are actually, it's not that they're around the corner, given the nature of our day and age. They're happening now. We're just not apprised of them yet. I think it's so weird, Nathan. I think we're living in a time, and I do think this is so. We rarely say this. We always say there's nothing new, and in the deepest sense, that's true. But I think something that is unique to our age, I think it was possible even not long ago. People would think, "Oh, what will the future be like?" I think overwhelmingly, the feeling is for many people now, we're living in the future.
Mhm.
We are in the strange new world. It's happening. This is some sort of weird iteration of the singularity right now. So, yeah, things are, but one thing is for certain, it's moving at a very fast pace. But one thing is also true. We can't escape our humanity. we still remain persons, and our outlook remains personal. And for all of our technological advances and rapid acceleration, we still have to work within the limitations of being a person. Even the tech bros in Silicon Valley or wherever else they are, even the transhumanists, even the posthumanists, even the posthumanists, all of them, we are still persons. And I like, yeah, I keep coming back to, was it Susanna Black Roberts? The key challenge of our age is to be fully human. I think she's right. That's well said. So take this as one more conversation, one more reflection on what it means to be human in 2025. But yes, you've been listening to Thinking Out Loud, a podcast where we think out loud about current events and Christian hope.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Out Loud. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, book Nathan or Cameron, or if you'd like to support us financially, whether through a one-time donation or on a monthly basis, you can do so on the donate page at www.toltogether.com. That's toltogether.com. And please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and sharing this content with your friends. It really does help.